Hey, what's up, y'all? Said Entertainer here. Big shout out to Laquan and the National Juneteenth Foundation, man, on their official launch. Salute to you guys. Now is more important time to understand what Black culture is about, what it is for us, and how we are going to contribute to the forward motion of this nation. You know it's necessary. We do it the right way. We've been oppressed, but we also are the people that make sure that we push culture and creativity forward, and now politics. So let's continue to be dynamic, folks. Learn more about your heritage, learn more about your culture, celebrate Juneteenth, and salute to you, the Juneteenth Foundation. All right, y'all. All right, y'all. Holla.
Legacy. It's what we leave behind for those who are to come. A strong tradition of perseverance, determination, and dedication to a country that hasn't always loved us the way we loved it. That is the legacy of the Black community. It's a legacy worth sharing and a legacy worth protecting. Good evening, family and friends and supporters. My name is Kareem D. Marshall, and I'll be your MC for the evening. Welcome to the virtual launch of the Juneteenth Foundation. In 114 days, we will celebrate the 155th Juneteenth. And we think it's time that that's something the rest of the country has had a chance to recognize. Now, in a second, we're going to be joined by our founder and the leader of this initiative. But before he comes on, I want to take a second to tell you about the type of person he is. Think of a problem. Think of your most intractable issue, something that you long ago accepted as just the way things are. Those are the problems that Laquan likes to attack. Be it safely coordinating a mass protest for peace in the middle of a pandemic, or advancing something in a bipartisan way that's usually considered too contentious, like sentencing and prison reform. These are the problems that Brother Austin eats for breakfast. Ladies and gentlemen, our founder, Laquan Austin.
Kareem, what an introduction, man. I appreciate that. I don't think I deserve all that, man, but I appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in tonight for the virtual launch of the Juneteenth Foundation. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen in to kind of what we have in store this year for Juneteenth. It's exciting. It's our launch, and I'm glad to be here sharing this moment with you guys. This project really began last May after George Floyd's death. And like many of you guys, I felt this sense of restlessness that I would feel irresponsible if I sat on the sidelines and wasn't a part of this fight. That something more needed to be done, and that, again, not being engaged, not being involved, which is simply not enough. I have a mentor of mine who often tells me, you begin to live when you start living for other people and not yourself. When you live and you fight for your community, that's when life really begins. And what started as a kernel of an idea has really blossomed is growing into a really amazing project and process. And I couldn't do it alone. So I want to stop for a second and just thank some of the people here who've gotten us to this point and have been huge contributors to what we're doing. Tech, do you mind pulling up those slides really quickly so we can introduce some members of the team here really fast? I want to start by introducing our board of directors. We have Brianka Hurley, who runs an administrative assistance business that serves Fortune 500 companies. Charles Hurley, who is the legal counsel over at a major sports betting agency. Alicia Austin, who is the brand director for Amtrak, and Isaac King, who is the founder and chief operating officer of CYEP, Capital Youth Empowerment Program. So 4 of our board directors who have been amazing to lend their time and their talents. Next slide. I also wanted to share our organizing committee. These are the folks, again, who are on the ground helping really get the job done and who are working with me day to day to actually execute this process. Grace Oak, who's been an absolute rock star, the backbone of this project in so many different ways. Franklin Stowe, who is really leading and championing our civic engagement and volunteer project that we're doing. He'll be working with people like Alexis Banner and so many others and leading a really remarkable initiative surrounding our civic engagement project. Ben Branch, remarkable guy, man. He is the former director of the Congressional Black Caucus and has really been a project partner for me on this thing and has been amazing. Treber Henderson, who's actually helping spearhead our HBCU scholarship component. Kareem Marshall, our MC for the night, my main man. He's been our operations focused, driven, and just an all-around help contributor. David Washington, who's helping find and source our talent for some of the events that we have planned for this year for Juneteenth. Chanel Rawls, who's working with our D9 programs and partners throughout the country, and Lindsay, who's just an absolute rock star with event management, planning, and just the brains behind these operations. So just want to really shout out our organizing committee for all the work that they're doing. And then the last slide, please. One more group of folks I want to thank just really fast who put in so much work on this project thus far. Probably next slide. If you don't have it available, don't worry about it. I'll keep moving. Guys, this year was the first year in particular that so many people in the country really began to engage on Juneteenth. And it was kind of interesting, right? I mean, look, I'm from New Jersey, spent my life there and been here in Virginia now for about a dozen years or so. And I, undergraduate and got a master's degree and currently completing my PhD. And, in full honesty, the reality is so many people just still haven't been exposed to Juneteenth, including myself, right? It's a day that is so under-celebrated, so under-recognized, and so underappreciated. And that's what the Juneteenth Foundations aim to do. We're about to change that. We're about to change the way in which we look at Juneteenth, the way it's celebrated, and put on the largest premier Juneteenth celebration this nation's ever had. And make sure that we connect it with communities across the country to celebrate Juneteenth their ways as well. It should be no issue why people aren't familiar with Juneteenth. It is America's second independence. It is not just simply a Black holiday. It is a day for America, right? It is a day to really celebrate our excellence, our freedom. And actually, there was one clip this year that I saw that really stood out. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the TV show Blackish, but I want to play that clip for you here really quickly.
We do everything we can do to turn down our blackness.
Well, we're never going to not have to do that, son.
Look, people are never gonna celebrate something they barely even want to admit happened.
Look, I get that. But at least can we have one day where the country acknowledged it? It would feel like, I don't know, an apology.
Wow, can you imagine that?
Oh, hell no.
Instead of waiting for an apology, why don't we just do something? I mean, if we want to honor the end of slavery, then we should celebrate Juneteenth.
Wait, that's what Juneteenth is?
We don't celebrate the end of slavery, but you wake us up early on Cyber Monday. You are a bad Black person.
Yeah?
You know what? Not anymore. From now on, we will be Black out loud. Oh. Our whole family will celebrate Juneteenth.
All right.
Boom! I know where to buy strawberry soda.
And I'll make a mean red velvet cake.
I'll fire up the grill. That loud and black enough for you?
Yep.
I'll hang up my stocking.
Oh, buddy.
So it's a funny clip, but the things that are said in that clip are actually really significant and incredibly important. I mean, we take time to celebrate so many other different things except for our own heritage and our culture. And the importance of celebrating it as a country is now more important than ever before, right? We've seen times of divisiveness, we've seen times of separation, et cetera, but being able to embrace the things that make us wonderfully and fearfully Black, I want to be able to celebrate those things. Juneteenth, again, really embarked on this journey of our freedom and our journey here to achieve our piece of our American dream. So I'm so excited for you all to be here tonight with me. We have a remarkable program set up, and you'll hear from some really great, some really dope speakers, for lack of a better word, who have some really remarkable things to say about it. So thank you all so much for being here for the launch of the Juneteenth Foundation. Before I go, Prami, I just want to say two things. The first one being is please, please, please get engaged and get involved early, right? Sign up for our programs that we have kicked off this week for Juneteenth this year. You'll hear about them in a bit here, but also I would love for you guys to volunteer with us. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities, and consider donating, right? We are a nonprofit that's fueled by small and amazing people who are doing incredible things in the world. And I want to encourage you all to consider contributing as well. I'm incredibly thankful for the people who've leaned in thus far and helped build this project. I mean, it's not every day you get to do something you love with people you love. So I'm honored to be working with so many remarkable people, joined by our wonderful panelists tonight. And thank you all so much for being here. We got a great program scheduled for you. Over back to you, Kareem.
Hey, this is Anthony Anderson, and I want to personally congratulate Laquan and the team on launching the National Juneteenth Foundation, where you are educating the nation on the importance of Juneteenth and recognizing it as a national holiday. It's very important. It's our story. It's history. It's our history, and it needs to be shared, it needs to be celebrated, and it needs to be told, especially for Black culture. So Laquan and team, congratulations again.
So we're going to take a second and tell you about what the celebration weekend is going to look like. This year, we have something spectacular planned for Juneteenth. The weekend of June 18th to June 20th this year will be the inaugural Juneteenth Freedom Festival. Instead of a single day celebration, we will have a weekend-long celebration. It will start with a freedom reception at the Blacksonian. Now, that is the National Museum of African American History and Culture to the uninitiated. The reception will include some prominent members of Congress, and we will award academic scholarships to students attending HBCUs. On Saturday, we're going to host a job fair, a volunteer services program, and we'll end the day with a concert showcasing some stellar talent. We'll end our celebration with a gospel freedom brunch on Sunday. Now, this weekend exists with a goal of creating a platform for Black people and allies to crown the celebration of Juneteenth. I encourage you all to sign up early and get ready, because we are going to make sure that the world knows the importance of Juneteenth to the history of this country.
Yo, what's going on? This is Neo, and I am giving a shout out to the incomparable Laquan Austin. Congratulations on launching the Juneteenth Foundation. To anybody that doesn't know, Juneteenth is absolutely about us, okay? It's our holiday, and it is very, very dire and sincerely important that we have representation for ourselves. I mean, you already know that. You know, with everything that's going on, we got to do it for us. So congratulations to Laquan Austin for doing what you're doing with the Juneteenth Foundation. All right, this is Neo. Peace and love.
Now, I don't know how many of you have had the chance to visit Oakland, but the Bay, my wife is from the Bay, so I know this firsthand. The Bay has a special energy to it. It's liberationist, nonconformist, and as they would say, hella proud. The Hella Creative Collective came together to support one another at the height of COVID. They started an online group to socialize, collaborate, and develop new ideas, and just to look out for each other. But the organizing principle, keep it positive and look out for each other. Hella Juneteenth was founded in the Bay by the collective to inspire national recognition and pride around Juneteenth. It is my pleasure, my honor, to introduce one of the founders of a vital partner organization, Hella Juneteenth, Quentin Harris. So before we get started, I wanted to introduce Rashad Lambert. He is a founder of Forbes The Culture, stylized as four with BES in parentheses, The Culture. This platform is the preeminent community for young Black and Brown entrepreneurs and their allies to connect with each other, champion their unique journeys, and to celebrate their successes. Forbes The Culture is a voice. It's the voice to spotlight the leaders who are driving meaningful change across industries and in society. Their team is committed to using their international platform to create true equity. Founded by our moderator and his two partners, after 2 years of organic independent growth, Forbes The Culture officially joined Forbes Incorporated, giving it access to additional resources and granting it global reach. It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's panel moderator and recently appointed Director of Culture and Community at Forbes, Mr. Rashad Lambert.
Thanks for that intro, Kareem. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Everybody good? All right, yeah. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Vanessa, Liz, and to Wes. Wes, what's going on, sir? Thank you all for joining us this evening. This is one of my favorite things to do. Is I like to talk to Black people. So this is one of my favorite things to do. The best part of my day. So before I jump in, because I got some really interesting questions that I want to jump into. Now, I'll give you an option. I don't usually give out options, but I'll give you an option. I can read your bio, or you can introduce yourself and tell us something really cool that nobody would read in your bio. So I'm going to start with Miss Liz Leiba. Am I saying that correctly? Leiba. I'm sorry. Yeah, Leiba. So now, would you like me to read your bio, or would you like to introduce yourself and give us a fun fact? Which one?
I'll introduce myself.
Okay.
I like to live on the wild side. I'll just introduce myself. I'll make it really quick. And I'll give you, I guess, maybe it's in my bio, but my name is Liz Leiba. I'm a 20-year veteran of higher education. I've been a college professor for over a decade, worked at a variety of different colleges and universities across the country, online and face-to-face. Currently work as an instructional designer as well as teaching part-time. And I primarily work in community colleges and career colleges because that's the community that really speaks to me, because I went to a predominantly Black school here in Fort Lauderdale, on the east side of Fort Lauderdale, went to a PWI on a full minority ride. And at the time that I was at University of Florida, actually was falsely arrested and had to post bail, was accused of shoplifting some batteries. And my mom had to bail me out. When I went to the lawyer and produced a receipt, it was in my backpack the whole time, but I didn't have the opportunity to produce it. And they called the police and basically took me to jail. When my mom picked me up from jail, she said, "Why didn't you just sign the no trespass? They would have let you go home." And I said, "Nope." At 19, I became a social justice warrior on that day. And I was like, I was not going to sign a paper to say I stole something, which I knew I didn't. Right. So I guess how I came to be known on social media was that I posted about that, as well as Laquan really said it the day that I watched George Floyd get murdered, lynched in front of our eyes. Something clicked inside me. I always tell my students, if you see something, say something, speak up, be empowered. And I just decided to empower myself. I started using my platform. I have a higher education podcast I have been doing, and I just doubled down and just started talking about racial justice, inequity. I posted about my situation, which I was very embarrassed about. Nobody knew. A handful of people in my life even knew that had happened to me. CNN approached me and asked me to do an op-ed piece. That op-ed piece I did on CNN about that situation, about being racially profiled at 19, went viral. I felt like it was my responsibility to let people know that 110-pound, 5'3" Black girl could be racially profiled, not just 6'5", 225-pound, menacing, resisting person. Anyone could be racially profiled based on the color of your skin. And that CNN op-ed piece went viral. They had about 2 million posts on their website about that particular situation. And as a result of that, I decided to found the Black History Culture Academy, which is my own platform where I educate about Black history and create micro-learning classes. And I launched about a month ago. So I'm dedicated to the idea of while we're here today, accurate history, and making sure that people are informed across the country about what accurate history is in terms of Black folk in America.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And that was much better than the bio. See, I like that. Yeah, that's much better. Now, Ms. Jones, I'll give you the same option. I can read your bio, or you can introduce yourself.
Either way, I'm going to be embarrassed because it always just seems like, why are we talking about ourselves? I'm going to start with something nobody knows until they actually get to know me. I was a member of the Nation of Islam, so I'm a former Vanessa X, and now I'm going to explain to you how that happened. From elementary to middle school, I think I went to predominantly Black schools for my education. Middle school to throughout college, it was always predominantly white institutions. somewhere in high school, I kind of lost my identity as a Black woman, and didn't think that I was like regular Black people. So that whole summer before going to this predominantly white Christian all women's college in South Carolina, I saw Minister Farrakhan on CNN, and I said, you know what, something is wrong and something's missing. So after reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, I decided that, oh yeah, you are very much a Black woman and a Black woman from the South. So get it together when you get to the school full of white folk for the second time in your life. So since I guess maybe my freshman year of college to now, I've always been involved in politics or policy in some form. So I've worked for the South Carolina legislature, the Texas legislature, and part of my bio talks about me being the first African American woman to serve as a senior advisor to the president for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. That is a mouthful. But I have a perspective of being Southern Black, thinking I was not quite Black, and then being in international environments as to how they view Black Americans. So I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. As I'm looking at Liz and Wes, I'm like, so I'm the old chick on the call, I'm the old head. So I'm gonna have to school y'all about my generation.
No.
I just sleep in ice because I have so for y'all to get some perspective about how old I am. My child is 22.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I'm very old.
That means you have
mine is 18. So.
Were you gonna say I had it when I was 12?
Yeah, that's when you had it when you was 3, and I said 3.
There you go. I love you already.
Last but thank you, Vanessa. Last but certainly not least, that was. Now I don't know which one we getting. So I saw you put the hood up. So are we getting Hoodie West or are we getting Dr. Bellamy? Which I don't know.
I guess it's all in one tonight.
Okay.
My name is Dr. Wes Bellamy. I am the former Vice Mayor of Charlottesville, Virginia. I currently serve as the Political Science Department Chairman at Virginia State University. And in addition to that, I serve as the National Co-Chairman of Our Black Party, which we founded with my dear brother, Mr. Rashad Lambert, who serves on our National Steering Committee. And more than anything, I just love our people. I'm encouraged by hearing these two dear sisters and their plight and the work in which they're putting our community. And I'm looking forward to having a really good conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So I'm going to jump right in. I don't like to waste time. So I want to talk about Juneteenth in ways that it hasn't been discussed yet. So I want to start with policy because we all mentioned policy. So what policies are being implemented to shed light on the importance of Juneteenth? And I'll start with Wes going in reverse order of the intros. I'll come to Vanessa and then Liz later.
Sure. Well, I know there's a national push on the congressional level for legislators to be able to truly recognize Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Whether or not that'll get support with this Democratic House and Senate is yet to be seen. However, we shall see what happens. But I know on the state and local level, while I was the vice mayor of Charlottesville, we implemented and formally instituted Juneteenth as a holiday. We also instituted something known as Freedom and Liberation Day, which is the specific day in Charlottesville in which our enslaved were deemed quote unquote free. So I think that's a route that many of us can take on a local level, in which we all can lobby or advocate for our local elected officials and so forth to follow that mantra. First, doing the research of finding out when your municipality actually were freed, and it's tricky because some of us think that on the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st just did it for everybody, and we know that's not to be true. That's why we have Juneteenth. But furthermore, it's important for you to understand when in your locality where you live, it was official on the books that the enslaved and our ancestors were deemed free. That day in Charlottesville is March 3rd. Charlottesville and Albemarle County, for that matter, is March 3rd, in which we have a big parade and a festival and so forth. So again, I think those are things that we all can do in the immediate. And it kind of comes back to what we often talk about. All politics are local. And in my personal opinion, maybe I'm a little biased because I was a local elected, But in my personal opinion, I think that's where we can find the most bang for our buck in the immediate. So great question, Rashad.
Thank you. Vanessa, saying anything you want to add to that?
Going to echo what Wes said. In 47 states in the District of Columbia, Juneteenth is celebrated. So last year, after George Floyd, then Senator Booker and Senator Harris and a few others, without Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, introduced legislation to make Juneteenth a national holiday. The Congressional Black Caucus Institute, separate from the Congressional Black Caucus, issued a statement on that day in conjunction with the NAACP, Delta Sigma Theta, Sigma Gamma Rho. It was a joint statement because we all have special consultative status within the United Nations Economic and Social Council. So as the UN recognized that they had failed to call out racism on Juneteenth at 8:46, the time George Floyd was killed, we had a moment of silence and introduced our statement calling for Juneteenth to be a national holiday, as well as calling on the world to, formally recognize the fact that, we're still suffering. We still weren't really free on that day.
I 100% agree. Liz, same question here. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. It does happen. I think that Dr. Bellamy and Vanessa, Ms. Jones, they really summed it up really well. I couldn't have said it better. I definitely feel as though there needs to be more national attention on, I think when Laquan was giving his intro about the idea of the importance of Juneteenth, I think it speaks to what all of us are experiencing or have experienced over the past year, is this resurgence in the sense of the importance of our voices. And I think that's really what it means to me in terms of seeing a national push, the idea that we have to acknowledge, the suffering and the current condition of America and Black folk in particular, our struggle. And I think Ms. Jones said it well, that we're still struggling. So even that idea of celebrating Juneteenth, I think a lot of it is really more of us having the ability to mobilize behind, like, why should we have Columbus Day? Why should we have holidays that celebrate genocide? And we can't have a holiday that celebrates the idea that Black folk in America were enslaved. It's kind of like with the clip that Laquan showed, that Black folk in America were enslaved and didn't even know that they were free. And there has been, I think, across the country, pretty much that's really tells a story of Black folk in America, that we can sit and eat at the same lunch counter, but in a lot of ways, if I don't have the same amount of money to pay for that meal because I don't make the same wages, something is wrong there. So I think it's really more of us being able to mobilize our voices, and we have to hold elected officials accountable so our needs and our concerns are vocalized. So for me, I think it's more of a symbolic act of making sure that we hold those that are in positions of power accountable for not just necessarily celebrating a holiday, but for taking the needs of Black folk across the country seriously.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed last year is it seemed like and I think this was mentioned earlier. I don't remember who said it during the intro, but I think it was mentioned earlier that it kind of seemed like in 2020, a lot of people who have refused to acknowledge it previously kind of like discovered that racism still exists. I'm surprised. And then I saw a lot of corporations taking advantage of the opportunity to make Juneteenth a holiday, because who doesn't want a day off? And it was added to their calendars, and we thought that we were making some significant progress. And then when the 2021 calendars were revealed, that holiday was removed from a lot of corporate calendars. It was removed from a lot of state and local calendars, and it kind of seemed like it was just to quiet the noise of last year. What do you and whoever whoever wants to start can take this question. But what do you think corporations owe to the Black community?
We do everything we can do to turn down our blackness.
Sorry about that. We had a quick commercial break, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the question is, what do you think that the corporations owe to the Black community as it relates to the celebration of when we want to celebrate versus when they want to profit off of our celebration?
Well, I'll jump in. Initially, my thoughts are, we don't need, you don't need, our people don't need validation from any corporation, any state and local government, any federal government for us to value and recognize the power of ourselves. And again, I say that as a former elected official and who's really good friends with my current governor and several individuals up and down and throughout the party, the Democratic Party for that matter, and Republican Party. I have friends as well. Shout out to Tim Scott. But I think that we don't need, again, I can't emphasize this enough, validation from anyone else. What those people, as my grandmama would say, choose to do is on them. What they choose to do is what they've always done. And I'm hoping that we get to a point in which we consistently support our own, which I believe has been the case, specifically over the last few months. And I would beg to say, or I would dare say over the last few years, there's been a push for us to ensure that we support Black businesses, for us to ensure that we support Black media. And now more than ever, we see the need and why it's so important for us to do so. So again, corporations, government entities and so forth, they're going to do what they do. And this is part of why myself, Rashad, our dear sisters, Candace, Leah, and Stephanie, we started our Black Party. There's nothing wrong with Black folks centering the needs of Black priorities. There's nothing wrong with Black folk making sure that Black folk are put first. There's nothing wrong with us saying that regardless of what anybody else does, we're going to take care of ourselves. And I think the sooner that we stop looking and concerning ourselves with what people aren't doing, we can focus more on what we are doing. I'm not worried about what the New York Times is doing when my brother Rashad has Forbes the culture. I'm not worried about what white folk in DC are doing on the 4th of July when these good folks right here are putting together something for Juneteenth. So again, the focus is on ourselves and less worrying about everybody else.
I 1000% agree. Anything that you guys want to add to that?
Rashad, for me, being at the Congressional Black Caucus Institute and having lots of corporate sponsors, I got lots of calls about what can we do to help Black people. And I'm like, did we become Black, or did Black people just come on the planet when you watch George Floyd being killed? And I think that moment embarrassed them and reminded them that there is a problem in America. And so all of a sudden, DE&I is sexy. Everybody wants to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've always had this issue. It hasn't gone away. And so they did what was popular for the moment. Hey, we need to get in the game. We need to do something. And then, we don't hold them accountable for taking advantage of that moment. And, later on, when they don't do what they said they were going to do, we still need to hold their feet to the fire and say, even though we're supporting ourselves, you're trying to take advantage of this moment. We're going to make sure that you don't. You're going to do what you said you were going to do. Even if you weren't sincere about it, we still need to hold them accountable for doing so.
But see, I'll push back on that just a tad. I feel as if we do hold them accountable. And I think accountability looks like different things for different people. But when we see entities like Gucci hiring a Dapper Dan, when we see I'm not necessarily going to go into all the companies who have made I'm not going to call them token hires or done different things in terms of putting money and resources into different organizations. When they do those things, and I may be in the minority in this opinion of sorts, I really don't care why they do it. These entities and companies have always acted like this. And if now they're going to put their resources into our organizations, into our communities, then that's great. Let's take the money and do what we have to do for ourselves. Honestly, what transpired with George Floyd isn't much different from the horror that we saw at the Capitol on January 6th. And it doesn't differ, honestly, from my perspective, from what we saw in Charlottesville in August of 2017. I was literally right outside and the only Black person on the city council at that time. White people, white supremacists, these systematic oppressions and so forth, this is a trend for them. There'll be, unfortunately, 2-3 years from now, another uprising and white people will do something else crazy. And another 3-4 years after that, there will be something else that makes the masses say, oh my God, I don't want to be like them. The accountability isn't on us. The accountability is on white people to tell these white corporations that they need to do what they're supposed to do. And again, it comes back, and I may be in the minority in this respect, but for our people, we focus on us. We make sure that we do what we're supposed to do, and we make sure that we support each other.
Are we doing that? So not to change the question, Liz, I'm sorry. I know you might want to add something to that, but are we supporting each other in the best way that we possibly can?
I think we are. I think that this time last year, I didn't see as many of these kinds of conversation. I think the conversations have definitely always happened. We've had Race America. We've had forums where people have talked about what's happening with Black folk around America. But I think the consistent, like pedal to the metal, like people are not letting up. People that have voices, people like the esteemed members of this panel, everyone really wants to utilize their voice and mobilize their voice and find new ways, like what Laquan is doing, where it's like, okay, you know what? Just like Dr. Bellamy said, if they're not willing to celebrate us, they're not willing to amplify our voices, our concerns, our struggle, our celebrations, whatever it is, we're going to form a collective and we're going to find ways to do it ourselves. So I think the difference is the level and the consistency in our desire to empower our own selves, our own communities, our own voices. And I think that if you would have told me this time last year, I would have been here talking and doing this or any of the things I've done over the past year, even though I've done a lot of things over my career, my consistent, just like almost like, I would say compulsive focus has been, what can I do to lend my voice in a way that's more meaningful, in a way that can really change and help the Black community in whatever way that I can. So I definitely feel as though we are supporting each other. We're doing it in different ways that we probably didn't do a year ago or didn't do. And I think we've always had, I think the history of Black folks shows that we've always come together. We've always found ways to try to overcome oppressive situations, but I just feel as though I see a difference in, even though we're always going to have these situations. I grew up in the 90s, so that you had Rodney King, and then we had Trayvon Martin and the Black Lives Matter, and then we're having this now. But I just feel as though there is just this new, different sense that we're not going to back down, and that empowered feeling that this is going to be different this time. And I think there is a sense sometimes of, well, is it ever going to be different? Because every cycle, there's always another injustice, there's always another hashtag, there's always another name. But I think that's just the nature of, almost like when you're an alien, we don't belong here. We were brought here, and now it's just a matter of us forming our own collectives and being, like Dr. Bellamy said, being more intentional about, well, we can't really expect much from the greater community. How can we turn in and support each other in ways that are meaningful? And I think that we are doing that to the extent that can be done. And the more that people like Laquan do it, the more that he'll inspire other people to do it as well, I think.
Absolutely. I want to switch gears and talk about money, because that is. Oh, go ahead, please. Please.
I didn't know if she wanted to chime in, but I did want to respond to that. Like, there's just one. I agree. There's two things that come to mind from your comments. I understand wholeheartedly where you're coming from in regards to the perspective in which we're often treated as aliens in this society, but we belong here. My ancestors built this shit. Like, and literally data and historical facts will show that Black folk have been in the Americas, quote unquote, or the New World, literally longer than any other cultural identity in the United States outside of the natives. We've been here prior to the Europeans. We've been here prior than the Asians, literally prior than any other ethnicity group. So we belong here. We lay claim to this state, like to this land. This is ours. And furthermore, in addition to just being here, we built this joint for free. Like my dear sister Angela Rao would say, we built it for free. My ancestors literally died for this shit. Like, nah, this is ours. We belong here. I love America, and because I love America, I reserve the right to hold it accountable and be critical of it, because again, my ancestors built this joint. But then secondly, I would, and again, sister, I don't want this to come off and sound combative, but I would push back on the notion in which it is more intense right now in terms of the decision for us to support our own. I think that it is often a feeling in which we believe that things are heightened when we're living in something. But I could also argue that if we looked at data and we looked at historical perspectives from shortly after emancipation or even during moments of enslavement, our folks had to work together for survival. If you look at during the era post the civil rights movement, or excuse me, post the Civil War, when you look at during Jim Crow's era, when you look at the quote unquote civil rights movement, we've always bought with each other. We've always bartered with each other. We've always supported each other, and oftentimes because we had to. And this is no different. We have a little bit more resources now, some of us for that matter, and we're making a dedicated effort and decision to support each other. But I don't think this is any more intense or any different from what our people have done before. It's just being magnified due to social media, due to advancements in media, and we're getting the opportunity to see it. But we've always loved each other. We've always supported each other. We've always made sure that we looked out for each other. Even in times when it looks like we didn't, we did, in my opinion.
No, you're right. And I appreciate that pushback because you know what? It's the narrative, and that's that conditioning. Because I went to school in Gainesville. Rosewood Massacre happened literally 20 minutes away from where I went to school. We have brilliant societies. We have Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. We've always come together, but it is that conditioning that makes us feel as though we have had to not be affiliated with each other, or we've had to kind of like get into the mainstream society and not come together. So what you're saying is spot on, that it's not necessarily that it hasn't happened. I think the narrative has been told that isn't what we've done, and we have always done it. So I appreciate that pushback because you're absolutely right.
Now I'm going to push back on both of y'all.
Go ahead.
To remove.
It's some pushing all up in this.
I like it.
Here's where I think that there's often a problem, and that's not with just the two of you, with me as well. When we have conversations about race and history and slavery, the emotionality of it always overtakes us, and it becomes volatile because we have such personal feelings and experiences with it. But here's a thought, especially on Weston, when you said, you know, Angela talks about we built this joint for free. We say that as though we had a choice. You know, we look at this as, you know, we didn't get a notice saying, hey, we're looking for people to come to America and build this for free, and then we're going to treat you like dirt. And then we said, okay, yeah, we signed up. We want to come over and do that. Yeah. You know, this was about economy. It was about money. It was about greed. And so, you know, I looked at Juneteenth when we were talking about having this discussion. I said, you know, I've looked at this in the wrong way. Initially, I looked at it as, why are we celebrating a day that it took lazy people, the lazy Union soldiers, to get to Galveston to finally tell people that they didn't want to free, really, that they were free. You know, they had this executive order, which I have issues with the executive order. You did it in 1862. Why did you not immediately enact it? Why did you need to wait to 1863? What was the story behind that? But with that, you know, we don't look at how that moment, the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment, how it affected both sides. You have now set a population of people free who have never been incorporated into that society. And you're now asking white people to deal with people that they own as property. And as Jefferson Davis said, a superior pet. You're asking them to look at this as a human being and not as property, as money. And now they're looking at you as, you know, that you're looking at African Americans as, now you are disrupting my way of life. You're disrupting my flow of money. And now you're telling me that these people are equal to me, that they're not going to provide labor for free for me to continue my lifestyle. And I think part of the problem is why we're still in this position we're in. There was no blueprint. There was no roadmap to what this looks like. And, you know, I made the mistake the other day. I was talking to Congressman Clyburn. I said, so what was the reentry plan? He said, reentry? You were never part of the plan. You were never integrated into society. So you're talking about reentry as though you were actually considered at one point. You weren't. So now you're introducing these people to a society that now they've got to figure out how to eat, how to, you know, where they're going to work, where they're going to live. And even though slave owners provided standard and subpar conditions for them, it's still nothing they had to contemplate until that moment.
I 1000% agree. And just to even add to that, you said there was no blueprint and no model for this. every other time, if you look throughout history, that there was slavery, because it didn't start here in America. There was slavery in other countries all throughout history. But when those slaves were freed, they left. They didn't stay in the place where they were enslaved. As soon as they were freed, they went somewhere else, or they were free to leave and go and build their own. And we didn't really have that. We didn't have that blueprint. But to Wes's point, and to Liz's point, and to your point, we've found ways to collaborate throughout time, right? And we found ways to always build back better and to rebuild, right? But right now we've entered the time, and I think Liz mentioned that it was the conditioning, and Wes was saying that it's the media that is putting us in a place where we feel like there's heightened tension, but it's no more heightened than it was before. It's just on Front Street. And we've abandoned this idea of this collaboration, of why we should have holidays like Juneteenth, and why we should be celebrating our freedom, and why we should be figuring out a way to utilize that to infuse capital into our communities. We've adapted this what I call this idea of colorblind capitalism, where we just freely give our money to whoever wants it because it's convenient, because this is the microwave generation. It's not really focused on investing into our communities, into Black businesses, and to rebuilding the new Black Wall Street or new Rosewood. So my question is, in keeping with that idea of this colorblind capitalism, I think we got to wrap up with this one, but how do we keep that heat turned up so that we as a people feel like it is always the time to buy Black and to invest Black and to make sure that we continue to build our communities up instead of just freely giving away our resources into whoever is the highest bidder?
I think what I've seen as an immigrant, and maybe that's why I have somewhat of a different perspective, even though I was raised here in the States, when people talk about this idea of colorblind, or the idea that Black folk need to pull themselves up by their bootstrap, or that this is meritocracy, or that there's opportunity, as someone that works in higher ed, I know that Black children are disparate and marginalized in pretty much every area of education, K through 12 and higher ed. But one thing I see about the Black communities in the Caribbean communities and some of the other immigrant communities is there is that idea of I don't even want to go outside to Walmart, or I'll go right here into my neighborhood. We see that here in South Florida with the Latino, the Cuban community, the Jamaican community, the Haitian community, and those that are maybe in New York and other areas where they have a high level of immigrants of different Caribbean and other communities. You do see there's more of trying to retain your own, and I don't really know if I even have the answer to that question. This is just my observation of sometimes I get very frustrated as an immigrant when I see people say, oh, well, you did it. And I'm like, well, my situation is very different. And the structure and the culture of immigrant communities is very different. But I do see that in a lot of the immigrant communities here in South Florida, they tend to be very insular, and they won't do business with anybody other than the people in their own communities. And I guess I'm reposing the question, and maybe you all can provide me with the answer, because I wonder why. I know historically that just has not been something that's been cultivated in the Black community, but maybe Dr. Bellamy and Ms. Jones can provide me with the answer to that question, because I'm really not sure why. I see it in South Florida and I see it in the immigrant community, but I just don't see it as much in the African American community. How can we develop that?
Yeah, because it does exist in places, but
it exists all over. Like, again, I think it just falls back into this notion in which white supremacy has made us believe that Black folk and Black Americans don't do certain things. Like, it is the biggest fallacy in which one can find. Even this whole entire, in my just opinion, is just a flat out lie. I would love for any economist to bring forth the receipts, to bring forth the receipts and show me where this whole diagram in which the Asian dollar circulates 36 times.
I was going to ask you about the money that's bouncing in certain communities. Is that not accurate?
I would love for any economist to show me a prime example in which for that to be true. And I can dispel that literally just walking up the street from my house. And I say this as an individual who has the documents and the data to show, not only in my municipality in Charlottesville, where Black folk are only 19% of the population, but in several others across the country, we do spend our money with each other. Like when we go and you get your hair cut, when the sisters go and get their hair done, when we go to the corner store that's ran by Mr. Jenkins, in which he's owned for 60 years, and you go there instead of the grocery store, he may not have the best produce, but you go in there instead of the other place, that's circulating your dollar in your community. When you're making a consistent effort to maybe get your homeboys hoodie, like shout out to my man Dow, I'm wearing this hoodie tonight, instead of going and getting that polo hoodie, that's putting money back in our community. Like there are ways in which we do this on a day-to-day basis, but white supremacy, and just my personal opinion, white supremacy has made us believe the worst about ourselves. It has made us consistently think that every other ethnicity and every other culture who does the exact same things that we do, they seem to do them so much better than we do. Now, am I here to say that there aren't some people who think that the white man's ice is better than the Black person's ice, although both ice melt the same way and it chills your water the exact same way? Yes, there are individuals who think just that. There are some individuals who believe that sending their children to certain schools is going to give them a better opportunity than them being around just all of their own people. Yes, there are individuals who believe and buy into that notion. But when I consistently, I'm just again speaking from my personal opinion and my vantage point, from what I've seen from traveling the country and traveling the world for that matter. I remember being in Brussels, Belgium, and the Black folk from the Congolese community, they were extremely tight-knit, just like how we would see on the east side of Atlanta. Black folk extremely tight-knit, spending money with each other. We do these things. We support each other. And as soon as we can continue to make concerted efforts to continue to do that, not start doing it, but continue to do that, and then speak positivity about what we're doing, we will see that narrative continue to change. I'm not going to say start to change, because it's already changed.
Well, so I'm going to agree with you. I know you weren't expecting that.
Oh, no.
Here's another take on that. Every year during Black History Month, I'm always excited to learn something new about what we've created, what we've brought to America, what we've learned. But to your point about, our reinvesting into our communities, I do think we have an issue with believing that it's possible, and then still thinking that, well, now I'm integrated into mainstream America. Why do I need to do it? I think when we had to do it for ourselves, there were more businesses, there were more places and things, but we don't feel like we have to do it anymore.
And I guess that was my question, because why don't we see like those people that bought that land recently and decided to have all Black people be able to purchase houses on that land, or where we had Black Wall Street, where we had these thriving Black communities where it was just, and I almost feel like sometimes when Martin Luther King said, I fear that I'm integrating my people into a burning house, sometimes I almost feel as though, from someone who works in the school system, when you see schools in the Black communities that are so under resources, and you go a few miles, 10 miles down the street, and you see the schools in the suburban areas, and they have all the resources in the world. I guess that would be my question, in terms of someone in the chat said, are we a community, those thriving Black communities and those systems where we educate our own, and then we have the ability to develop wealth? And I mean, the wealth gap is worse now than it was during the 50s and during the civil rights movement. The home ownership, I mean, the education.
But newsflash, like the wealth, Black folk will never be able to catch up to white wealth, because systemically we were not provided the same opportunities as white people. So us even aspiring
we started from behind the starting line, like way
it's literally
behind.
Like you starting a basketball game and you had a 400-point deficit to start the game. It's a miracle that we even got to cut the lead to 100 at halftime. Comparing ourselves in that regard isn't
I really hate to cut you off. I'm sorry. I really hate to cut this off, but I gotta wrap up. We are way over time. I was just so enthralled in this conversation that I didn't want to cut it off, and I wish we could continue. But we definitely gotta wrap up. I'm sorry, y'all.
Love,
but
it's all good.
I just got caught up. That's why I don't moderate, because I like to listen. so sorry. I definitely want to thank you, Vanessa, Liz, and Wes, for holding this conversation. This was like a super dynamic discussion. And I look forward to more of this as we look to launching, the Juneteenth Foundation and having the Juneteenth weekend this year in June. Where can they find you guys? I guess I'll start with Vanessa and then Liz and then go to Wes. Where can they keep in contact with you?
You want me to give my email address, a website?
Give your social. Give your social.
I'm at the Professional Black Institute. We can go to the Institute's webpage. They'll give you our contact information.
Okay.
There we go.
Liz?
The best place to probably connect with me is on LinkedIn. I'm very prolific on there. I post every day about Black history, culture, everything that's happening around the world, anything to do with Black folk I post about. I have my Black History Culture Academy.com. I have my personal website, ElizabethLeiba.com. So you can reach out to me and send me a message on any of those forums.
See, Liz, I went old school. I forgot about social media. I'm on social media.
Yes, that's all. Like, please don't give your email.
We'll stalk you on social media. We'll just look you up on there. We know you're there.
Yeah, I'm on there.
You can find me on IG or all socials at Dr. Wes Bellamy. And looking forward to connecting. I got one question, Rashad, before we leave, though. I know we over time. Vanessa, where are you from in South Carolina?
Yes, Corey is my cousin.
Hey, yo, so one of my best friends is, I'm like, yo, gridiron. Okay, you already know.
Yes, Corey is my first cousin. I raised that child, which is why I say I'm old and y'all real young.
Yeah. Her little cousin is my right hand man.
So you made it worse by saying my little cousin. You
man.
Oh, my bad.
Liz over here calling me Miss Jones. I'm talking about my little cousin. I'm in these conversations with y'all.
Cut the mic. Cut it off. Cut it off right now.
It was a pleasure being on with y'all.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Listen, Juneteenth is such a wonderful day to celebrate. Why? Because it's the day that we celebrate the realization of our freedom here in the United States of America. And I am so happy that there's a foundation that brings that information to the forefront. So LaJuan and everybody at the National Juneteenth Foundation, congratulations on your lunch. And I'm so thankful that you chose me to be a part of your special day and your special program. God bless you.
Hi, Boris Koja here for Laquan and the Juneteenth Foundation. Look, it is so important to celebrate Juneteenth as well as other pivotal points in our history. It is important that we celebrate Black culture as a whole, so we remember where we came from, so we remember our culture, our identity, so we remember our forefathers, our ancestry, the queens and kings that came before us. June 19th is a pivotal day because it marks the Liberation Day, the Emancipation Day, the Freedom Day, the freeing of formerly enslaved people of African descent. Never forget, teach our children, teach each other, because we need to know where we came from in order to know where we're going to go. Bye.
Good evening, everyone. Now, when we get our people together, we got to give praise to the Most High. So I want to introduce our next speaker, Miss Belinda Kendall.
You can hear me? Hi, my name is Belinda Kendall. I'm CEO and founder of Promise Gospel Network. We're going to launch in about 4 states this year, the first quarter of this year. I'm also the national face for a skincare brand based out of Ireland. But most people know me as a social media influencer is what they call it. So I have thousands and thousands of followers on LinkedIn and Facebook, and some of my posts get probably 2-3 millions of views a week. The reason why? I use my platform to celebrate others and teach others about Black history. Now, when I think about Juneteenth, Maya Angelou's quote comes to mind. And it's when she said, "We come as one, but we stand as 10,000. This is so important for us to be at this event and celebrate our heritage and celebrate our identity. 2020 was a very hard year for a lot of people. But when you look at the word 2020 in the medical term, it means perfect vision. I think 2020 was a waking moment for all of us. And now we're able to see clear. But 21 means maturity. So we have grown in 2020. And this year I expect new Black millionaires, new Black authors, new Black business owners. I think this will be our year to thrive. But I will see you there. because from what I hear, it's going to be the best party in town. God bless you.
Belinda, thank you so much for those wise and wonderful words. I appreciate you so much. Rashad, Wes, Elizabeth, Vanessa, that panel discussion, I was even caught up myself and I started getting cues. We're going over time here, but guys, that was a very rich and dynamic discussion. I really hope you enjoyed this virtual launch for the foundation. Like I said, you're in for a real treat this year. We have such a dynamic program scheduled for this year with some amazing people, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. I encourage you again to go to thejuneteenthfoundation.com right now to make sure that you're getting all of our updates, to volunteer, to get engaged on our upcoming events, and to donate. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me directly at laquan@thejuneteenthfoundation.com and text me, call me, 732-322-1884. Guys, we're about to blow the roof off of Juneteenth and change the narrative related to its awareness, its celebration, and its recognition. But we can't do it without you guys. Thank you for your time, your love, and your support. See you soon. Love.